Hello everyone, and welcome to episode 1 of a brand new World of Warcraft Let's Play series, where today I am continuing my adventures in Azeroth, and this is going to be very similar to my Draenei Warrior Let's Play series for anyone who watched that, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in just a few minutes, but I want to go ahead and create a character, where you probably know based off the title of this video and the thumbnail, I am wanting to play a Blood Elf, and I am wanting to play a Warlock. Survivors of a brutal war, the Blood Elves drew strength from the magical Sunwell to rebuild their kingdom, where their racial traits are enchanting skill increased, restore resources like mana or energy, dispel nearby enemies, and resistant to arcane damage. Where we have a variety of classes that we can pick for Blood Elves, where out of all these classes, I have not done Death Knight yet. I've looked at Monk in a stream. I'm probably not going to look at a Demon Hunter on my channel, but maybe I will in the future. Same thing with Evoker, but you also cannot play as an Evoker, where you cannot play as a Druid or a Shaman. And we have explored Paladin, Priest. I've explored Rogue a bunch in my live streams. We have explored Mage, Hunter, Warrior, and that leaves us with Warlock. So I'm going to go ahead and play through this class, which is actually a pretty fun class that I like a decent amount, but I've talked about my experiences with a Warlock in vanilla where it's kind of not my favorite, but I'm excited to see what it's like in retail because I remember liking it a lot during like Cataclysm and Mist of Pandaria, but we have a bunch of different options here to customize our character. So how about we go with a character like this, and I can go ahead and give him a name, and we can go ahead and choose Sunrider Isle, and we can go ahead and begin exploring the lands of Quel'Thalas.
The past few years have seen unprecedented changes within the eternal land of Quel'Thalas. The Blood Elves, following the will of their crazed leader Quel'Thalas Sunrider, channeled dangerous, chaotic magics to transform their sacred Sunwell into a gateway of unspeakable evil. While Quel'Thalas and his demonic masters were eventually defeated, a different kind of transformation occurred within the Sunwell itself, as a dying Naru sacrificed its life essence to reignite the Sunwell into a fount of holy energy. Now, the Blood Elf regent Lorthamar Theron sees a new hope on the horizon for his people. Over time, the Sunwell's light could cure the Blood Elves of their cursed state, but many still cling to the arcane powers they've procured and are hesitant to relinquish them. As one of the remaining Blood Elves, you must fight to protect Quel'Thalas and help redeem the soul of your ancient people.
And here we are on Sunrider Isle, where we have our first quest to kill 6 mana worms. They are located close to the burning crystals that are adjacent to the tower and the gazebo. So let's go ahead and deal with them, where I should maybe check my settings really quickly because I often have to re-enable auto loot. It looks like those are good, and my action bars are they're there, but we can go ahead and use our starter Warlock spell. Shadow Bolt sends a shadowy bolt at the enemy, causing 15 shadow damage, and that will obviously upgrade over time, where we just launch like a bolt of shadow as it suggests, and we can go ahead and easily kill enemies. And on our first kill, we got a small black pouch, which is actually really funny. That's like really lucky RNG right there. So we have some extra bag space as we continue our adventures here in Sunrider Isle, the home of the Blood Elves, where I recently explored a Draenei Warrior, and I played through the 2 Draenei starting zones, where the Draenei were introduced in the first expansion for World of Warcraft, the Burning Crusade, and they were added for the Alliance. The Blood Elves were also added in the first expansion, the Burning Crusade, and are the last of the 2 races added in that expansion, and they were added for the Horde. And they are a very popular race in World of Warcraft. Maybe one of the most popular, like maybe second only to humans. A lot of people really enjoy playing as Blood Elves, and I like them a lot as well because there's a lot of lore and story that we can look at. Where in this Let's Play series specifically, I want to spend most of my time just playing through the 2 starting zones, where we have here, we have Eversong Woods, and down here we have the Ghostlands. So that's basically the bulk of this Let's Play series, and then in the final episode, I will probably spend some time in Outland just taking a look at what that continent looks like before we move on to a new character. So basically, I'm just going to play through the first two zones, and we're going to explore everything within those two zones while exploring the Blood Elves and while exploring the Warlock, where we have completed our first quest here, where this is not really an upgrade for us, but we can go ahead and start fighting some lynxes, and we can get these different lynx collars around here, where we have unlocked Corruption, which corrupts the target, causing 4 shadow damage and an additional 27 shadow damage over 14 seconds. So let's go ahead, and I think, we can look off over in this direction. This is actually a really fun thing with modern day World of Warcraft, where you couldn't really see this back in the day, but if you look all the way over there, and if you take a look at our map, we can see the Isle of Quel'Thalas, which I explored in depth on one of my streams, but it's way off in the distance. And we can see over there is where the Sun Well is located. So we are just south of that area right now. And we can also see Silver Moon City. If you take a look at our map, it's just in this direction. We can see right there, there's maybe like docks that used to be here. But of course, the areas around here are kind of destroyed, where the Blood Elves are currently recovering from massive defeats during Warcraft 3, where there's a lot of different pieces of lore and story going on here. Where let's go ahead and use Corruption. We probably want to use Shadow Bolt and then Corruption after, because I think it'll instantly apply. There we go. But there's just a ton of stuff going on which we can explore as we explore these two zones. Where of course the Blood Elves are one of the oldest races in basically, I guess, the entire Warcraft franchise, starting with Warcraft 2, where we see the High Elves, which the Blood Elves are basically the direct descendants of the High Elves, where we see the High Elves playing a big part in the Second War during the events of Warcraft 2 and helping out the Alliance drive back the Orcs, where the Orcs do cause a decent amount of damage to the lands of Quel'Thalas, but the Alliance, combined with the might of Quel'Thalas, is able to drive the Orcs out and back through the Dark Portal, and the rest is history. We're then looking at Warcraft 3. We see the events of the first human campaign in Warcraft 3, and then we also see the events of one of the campaigns and the expansion, the Frozen Throne. We see the Blood Elf campaign, and then we see bits and pieces from like all the other campaigns that influence like different events around this area of the world, such as with like the, what are they called, the Watchers campaign, I think, the Sentinel campaign, not the Watchers, where we see different things happening across this entire like region of the world, where largely we see it completely destroyed by the hands of Arthas and the Scourge, going into the second campaign of Warcraft 3, the Scourge campaign, where basically Arthas marches directly through Quel'Thalas and into the Sunwell, and basically uses the Sunwell to resurrect Quel'Thuzad as a Lich, where Quel'Thuzad was the leader of the Cult of the Damned. So there are a lot of undead storylines that we can go ahead and experience around this area of the world, and we are going to see basically the results of Arthas's march through this land and how he just basically devastated this entire area of the world. Where of course Blood Elves, alongside being a big and pretty lengthy part of like the Warcraft gameplay, we see them in the Warcraft lore, where of course I've talked a lot about this in past Let's Play series, but they're basically descendants of the Night Elves, where they left the Night Elves after the Sundering, where the Well of Eternity exploded, and they came to this area of the world and basically founded Quel'Thalas and became the High Elves. And then after the events of Warcraft 3 and how so many of their people died during Warcraft 3, they renamed themselves the Blood Elves, and that brings us to this point where we are currently here, like just a couple years, 1 year after the events of the vanilla version of World of Warcraft, and we are about 5 years after the events of Warcraft 3. where, of course, a lot of stuff is happening all over the world, but we see the Blood Elves have basically recouped and are starting to basically become a more powerful force in the world, and we are going to see some storylines related to that as different factions attempt to manipulate the Blood Elves, where when we go back to our Warlock, we have learned a new ability here called Summon Imp, where Warlocks, basically the biggest gameplay mechanic related to the Warlocks, are their abilities to summon minions, where I can go ahead and summon an imp. It has a 6-second cast time, and it costs 1 soul shard, which is like a bonus thing we have right there. But we have Choke Up, which I think it's on character creation. All of your minions are going to have the same name for like what type of minion they are. So whenever we summon an imp, it's going to be our good friend Choke Up for the rest of this character's life. And if we wanted an imp with a different name, we would have to recreate our character. But an imp is a pretty basic, pretty straightforward minion where he's just going to hang out with us and he's going to cast some firebolts, I believe they're called. Yes, they are firebolts at our enemies, and they're just going to basically help us defeat our enemies. And as we progress through the game, we are going to be learning some new demon spells so we can summon some new friends and new allies to the cause. Or I guess we're not really friends with the demons, we are basically forcing them to serve us against their will, which is kind of weird in a way. But speaking about how there is so much lore and story related to the Blood Elves, we have this cool area, the Shrine of Dathramar. You have discovered the location of the shrine. Upon further examination, you sense a stronger pulse of the strange power that has gripped the isle. You feel a bit uncomfortable standing by the shrine and perhaps a little disturbed. The bronze placard along the side of the shrine reads, "Here stands the Shrine of Dathramar, a fitting tribute to a noble elf. Let all who gaze on this monument remember his sacrifices for our people and his dedication to the cause of our continued survival. All who prosper in Quel'Thalas do so, thanks to him." So Dathramar, also known as Dathramar Sunstrider, is the leader of the High Elves who brought the High Elves to Quel'Thalas when they splintered from the Night Elves after basically Highborn society fell because of Azshara's betrayal to the Burning Legion, and he is basically responsible for the founding of Quel'Thalas and is also the original leader of the Sunstrider dynasty, who we see Quel'Thalas Sunstrider being a very important character in Warcraft 3 and in World of Warcraft, and especially in the Burning Crusade, where the storyline that takes place here is really, really weird, where we are currently at the start of the Burning Crusade, but the opening cinematic that we saw is actually for the Cataclysm expansion for World of Warcraft. So it's basically talking about what happens after the Burning Crusade and during the Burning Crusade, and then after that cutscene's done, we skip back in time to like the start of the Burning Crusade, and then when we leave this like starter area, we're going to be like transported to like basically the events of the War Within, and then from there we can like pick where we want to go in the world. So it's like really, really, really weird and kind of confusing. But basically, the story that's going on in these two zones is at the very beginning of the Burning Crusade expansion, and it's going to lead into the Outland story. So if you were to go to Outland and play through like the Burning Crusade story, you would be able to experience kind of like the continuation of the story that we learn about here. We have a nice passive that increases our critical strike chance by 1, and of course our enchanting skill is increased, and of course our arcane damage taken is reduced by 1%, but we have this very fun ability called Arcane Torrent. Removes 1 beneficial effect from all enemies within 8 yards and restores 3% of your mana. And we actually have to use this for one of our quests. So let's go ahead and use this now. And we can see that I think I gained a little bit of mana. I might have been at like full mana basically, but I guess that did not count for our quest. Oh, I think we have to use it on a mana worm. We have a scroll of Scourge magic, which might not be a really smart thing to have, so let's go ahead and grab that. It is Solanian's Belongings. But we just gained Unending Resolve, hardens your skin, reducing all damage you take by 25% and granting immunity to interrupt, silence, and pushback effects for 8 seconds. So it seems like a very powerful like defensive ability that is going to help us out if we ever get overwhelmed by any enemies. Here's the Scrying Orb, where this entire area is just beautiful, and I love how all of Eversong Woods looks, and the Ghostlands is also very cool, but looks pretty different compared to Eversong Woods, kind of in a similar way of Azure Mist Isle and Blood Mist Isle, where Azure Mist Isle is very like peaceful and tranquil, where Blood Mist Isle looks similar in vibes to Azure Mist, but is like all corrupted. That's kind of the same as Ghostlands, where it's very similar in vibes. It's like the same region of the world, but it's all corrupted. We have this mana worm. Let's go ahead and use this now. So we have unleashed Arcane Torrent, and we can go ahead and turn that quest in. But let's go ahead and grab this journal right here, where we have one quest back there we can turn in, and then we can go back to the main building. Very pretty like purple mushrooms right here. So fun with a bunch of different plants. I think this starting zone tends to be one of the more popular ones in the game as well, which is very fitting given the fact that the Blood Elves are very popular.
We will persevere.
But let's turn in this. I guess we can go ahead and get the staff, and then we can kill Arcane Wraiths and Tainted Arcane Wraiths, as well as Felindren the Banished. Alright, let's go ahead and come back this way, and I'll equip the Sunrider Staff, which we have the Apprentice's Staff, which looks decently cool, and then we have basically like 3 sticks bound together, which honestly does actually look very cool, but it just seems a very different vibe compared to what we started with, where we can see these Sunrider Guardians have like an updated model with like updated like armor and weapons from some recent expansion, and they look pretty cool, but nothing different than how they looked during the original Burning Crusade, which we'll see that with different mobs all around here, where I just got a buff. Fortitude of the Sindori, the Blood Elves, increases stamina and versatility by 5, where I got this cape here that's very cool looking. And then we can come in here where there's a Pandaren monk, and we have somewhere around here we have a Warlock trainer and a Demon trainer, which these 2 characters are no longer of use for us. I guess we could abandon our imp here if you didn't want to right click and dismiss, or maybe abandoning is a new mechanic they added so you could rename your imp. Not entirely sure, but let's go ahead and come up here. Well Watcher Solanian, where we can go ahead and turn in this quest and the Shrine of Death from our quest, and we just leveled up and we got Well Watcher gloves, so we can turn that in. And then we have the Thirst Unending quest, where I got the Sunrider book satchel, which is very fun. And let's go ahead and turn this quest in, where I think we have one more major quest left in the starting zone, where the starting zone here is actually very interesting, like structurally. Let's go ahead and turn that in, and I guess I'll just equip that. And now we have this one quest over here that we can go ahead and do, where we unlocked Fear. Strikes fear in the enemy, disorienting for 20 seconds. Damage may cancel the effect. Limit 1. So we can go ahead and select one enemy and we can fear them, where this is basically like a major CC ability, where they're going to be running around, but basically whenever they take damage, I think there's a chance where like you can deal damage and they won't have this happen to them, but it will break their fear when you damage them. So that's just like something to be aware of. But it's very nice if you're like fighting 2 enemies, you can like fear one of them and then deal with the other enemy, but you just have to be careful about the fact that the enemy will be running around, so they could run into like another group of enemies and grab their attention, and that is not going to be a good thing. But we have this very cool area over here that I like a lot and just looks super cool looking, where let's go ahead and go up here where we see this enchanted broom just sweeping the area, which is very nice for the Blood Elves. But we have a bunch of Arcane Wraiths, which a major storyline we see with basically like all of the elven races in World of Warcraft is a reliance on magic, and this is very prominent with the Blood Elves, where they really rely on magic, and they relied on the magics of the Sunwell. But with the Sunwell being destroyed in the events of Warcraft 3 because of Arthas's actions, the Blood Elves kind of fell into disrepair, and their leader Quel'Thalas, who was basically trying to help his people by finding a new source of magic, went to extreme lengths and in a way betrayed his people to other forces that would not benefit the Blood Elves, but he did so in an attempt to basically find a new magical source to satiate the Blood Elves' thirst for magics. Where if the Blood Elves do not have magic, we will see what happens to them in just a moment, because there's going to be a character up here who is referred to as a Withered, where this is kind of just a storyline that is basically a bit of a storyline related to addiction, and we can kind of see the effects that the Blood Elves' addiction to magic has on them and what they transform into. Where there's a tainted Arcane Wraith here that we can go ahead and destroy, kind of green looking, and we got a tainted Arcane Sliver that we can go ahead and bring back to the Arcanist. But let's go ahead and climb up here, where I do need 3 more normal wraiths and 1 more tainted wraith, where it looks like we have some up here. But we also have Felindrin, the Banished, which we can see looks similar to a Blood Elf, but looks withered. Where let's go ahead and deal with him, where he is banished, and he is about to be permanently banished. Where he has a voice line, which is really cool. And we can go ahead and defeat him, and we can just take his head. And let's go ahead and deal with this Arcane Wraith, and then this one over here, and then I'm going to have to find 1 more. Where oftentimes people will just jump off this building because there's water underneath this area, and that allows them to basically get back down pretty quickly. We just got another small red pouch. We are very lucky. Where I think I'm going to run down a little bit because I need to find that one over there, and then 1 more. Where we just leveled up, and we are now level 6, and it looks like our soul shards basically renewed as we leveled up. But we have a Curse of Weakness, increases the time between enemy attacks by 20% for 2 minutes. So this is kind of just like a nice ability to throw on like an enemy if you're going to be fighting them for a while, where we can go ahead and just slow down their attacks to help us out in the fight. But that was the last one we needed to defeat, so let's go ahead and jump down this way onto the roof of this part of the building. And then we can just trail over here and then drop down onto this bridge. And now let's go ahead and run back towards the academy, where we can go ahead and turn in this quest here, and this is going to take us out of the starter area. But let's go ahead and run this way, where the Blood Elf starting area is very, very interesting, because we have Sunrider Isle right here, which is basically the starter zone, but there's basically a second starter zone on top of this one, where the mobs in here are very, very easy, where in the second area they are definitely much stronger, and they lose like the starting zone debuff that mobs have. But it's still like a very like simple area, and it's kind of like an extension to this starting zone, where there's not too many quests in here, and there's not too many quests in the next area, but when you combine the two together, it's like just like slightly longer than your average starting zone, so it's very weird structurally. So we are done with like the first area here of Sunrider Isle that has Faltharian Academy, and we can go ahead and head over towards the ruins of Silvermoon, which is kind of an interesting area structurally as well, on top of it being like a second starter zone, where it is the western half of Silvermoon City, where we also have the eastern half of Silvermoon City, which serves as the racial capital for the Blood Elves, and that's where like the leader is located, and like all the different like important characters for like learning professions and whatnot are located, and how you get to like other areas of the world. The portals are located there, and we will explore that in the future, where we have Outrunner Alarian right here, where we can go ahead and complete this quest and go south into the ruins of Silvermoon and look for the slain Outrunner in Donnie Lane, where I want to go ahead and take a quick second, because I remember always being intrigued by this area over here, because it's just a random building, and I feel like at some point they added like a random NPC that's important for like some quest or something. But it's just something fun in this zone that's, you know, something that I really, really appreciate in a lot of games. So we have a Blood Knight character here, which is a Blood Elf Paladin. But I just love like areas that are like just slightly off the beaten path, that you can go ahead and take some extra time to explore and like see some cool characters, where I believe it would be paladin characters that come here at some point, or it might be a quest related to like the Burning Crusade expansion itself where you might come here at some point. I don't entirely remember, but we're here in Donnie Lane, where the music is very, very quiet, but I love the music in this area. And we can see basically a Silver Moon City here, where if you look at the map, it is the ruins of Silver Moon, and we can see a path of death that splits the two in half. But we have the Slain Outrunner here, where we can go ahead and pick up this package, and we can go ahead and run back this way and deliver this package back to this NPC, which is kind of interesting. You like run here and then you run back, and then we're going to be running forward again. But we can deliver the package, and now we have the quest to go to the innkeeper. So let's go ahead and deliver that package, and then we will be in this area of Falconwing Square, which is kind of like the first town in Eversong Woods, but there's like an official like main town that we will be exploring probably next episode. So this entire area is just like very like weird structurally, and I think I like that a lot because it's kind of just different from like the copy and paste of like all the other starter zones in World of Warcraft, at least like from vanilla and the Burning Crusade, where all the other starter zones is like you have like the starting area and then you leave it to go to like the main town in the map, and then you like go from there to different quest hubs. Where here we have like one half and then another half, and like combined it's a bit longer, but then we can go ahead and go to like the main town, and then from there we have a bunch of different hubs that we can go out to. For here we are at Falconwing Square, where I believe added in the Cataclysm expansion we have a Dragonhawk Master here, and we have unlocked a ton of flight paths across the Eastern Kingdoms, but we're going to leave all of those there for now. Right, let's go ahead and go around this area, and we can pick up all the different quests here. And I should probably go find a bank, or not a bank, a merchant, and we can go ahead and sell off a bunch of items. But we can come into Falconwing Inn, which I just love Blood Elf Inns a lot, and I think they look like really, really, really cool. We're just level up to level 7. Let's go ahead and make this our home. But we can see there's like a bar here, and then there's like some tables and some like lounge chairs or beds. And then we can like come up here where we have a little bit of a spiral staircase, and then we have this like big bedroom area right here with cool looking beds. And then we can come over here where we see like a kitchen area with a tradesman and a cooking trainer and just a bunch of like different decorations. And I just love how this entire area looks. It's very, very cool. Let's go ahead, let's sell some of this junk, and then maybe these Warlock trousers have a very interesting like icon. Same thing with the Warlock mitts. It's like very, very basic. But let's go ahead, organize that a little bit, and then let's come this way where the Silver Moon Guardian says glory to the Silver Moon, where a lot of the Blood Elves feel betrayed by Quel'Thalas, and they have looked towards the Region Lord, Lord Damar for guidance and leadership, where we have the Captain of the Bloodhawks, where we can pick up this quest, and a Novice Ranger, where we can go ahead and kill Quel'Thalas. Where we now have 3 quests where we can go ahead, come out this way, kill the leader of the Wretched around here, and then we can kill some other Wretched. We have to pick up some of these crystal crates, and then we need to fight some of these arcane patrollers, which are very interesting because they're kind of like mechanical, like arcane creatures, like the two combined, created by the Blood Elves to like defend themselves, and we'll see them around like Silver Moon City. But there's some of them that have gone haywire here in the ruins of Silver Moon, and we can go ahead and deal with them. Where there's just like a lot of cool statues around here, and I think we can maybe interact with a couple of them. Not entirely sure. We have this new skill here, Create Health Stone. Creates a health stone that can be consumed to restore 25% health. So basically what this is something that we can put on our action bar, and it is just a healing potion, so we can use this if we get low on health, and we can heal up, and we can basically just like get as many as we want pretty much. And we can also give these to our allies, which is nice. So we can give our allies basically a healing potion for them to use, which I think is really cool, and is a very like special part of the warlocks as well, because on top of like being able to summon minions, they can also summon some very special utility items like this, or also a soul stone, which will resurrect somebody when they die. And they can also summon portals anywhere in the world where you can summon your allies to, which is very fun. But we have the Huntress of the Sun here, which I guess the statue is just named. Uphold the law. Doesn't really seem like they're upholding the law. Where we have this wretched here, and then we can go into this big building right here, where I remember spending a lot of time in this area of the world just completing these quests, but it seems like we're getting through them like pretty quickly. But we have Quel'Thalas the Hunger here, who has a staff that's very similar to the one that we started the game with, or maybe the exact same staff. That would probably make sense. But oh, it looks like we accidentally tagged him. So let's go ahead and use corruption, maybe throw on the curse. And now let's go ahead and just use Shadow Bolt in order to deal with him. And ultimately pretty easy to kill. And now I just need to kill a bunch of Arcane Patrollers and also get one more mana crystal crate. That's going to be beneficial for us. We're at Feth's Way. And I like how there's like a barricaded door over there, or just like a locked door, and I would presume that would lead into like the other parts of Silvermoon City, but it is currently closed off. Here's another Arcane Patroller, and this should allow us to complete this quest. There we go, one more Arcane Core. Here's the Magister, and we got a light silk robe, which is +1 armor and is a red robe. And then we have the sergeant here, where we can deliver the head, and we have completed that quest. And then we have the captain of the Bloodhawks, whom we can go ahead and chat with to turn this in. And then we can go ahead and head out of this area, where before we head to the main town, we can go ahead and explore a couple more areas around here. So let's go this way, I think, where we have 2 sanctums around here, where we have the West Sanctum and then the North Sanctum, where we have one quest at each of these places. But we're now in like Eversong Woods proper, which is very cool. And we have this ruby sapling, which is a pet that we can go ahead and try to capture via pet battles if you wanted. But we have a very interesting character here, Prospector Envoy, a dwarf of the Alliance, which we can go ahead and chat with him. And he says, "What are you looking at, lad? Never seen a dwarf before then? You'd best be on your way if you don't want any trouble." Let's go ahead and deliver this, and then we can speak to the lake keeper to the west. So let's go ahead and head this way, where we can help out at the West Sanctum. But we need to be careful of the different lynxes around here, and there are some blood thistles right here, which is very fun because this is a special plant that can only be found in Eversong Woods, but is locked basically for rogues, or Blood Elf rogues can create like a special potion to restore energy, I believe, that requires them to make that potion via blood thistles. But we also just unlocked Health Funnel. Sacrifices 25% of your maximum health to heal your summoned demon for twice as much over 5 seconds, which is kind of cool. We can transfer some of our health to our demon in order to restore their health if we wanted. And that's kind of a trend we see a lot with warlocks, where they can sacrifice health and mana for like various things. But let's go ahead and come up here, where we have the Lake Keeper, and we can go ahead and complete this. And then we need to kill 5 mana wraiths and 5 mana stalkers. So let's go ahead and start dealing with them, where we just see some more like arcane creatures around here. But there might be another threat looming around here, because if we look at this quest, we can see that they believe there are reports of Darnassian sabotage, people from Darnassus, aka Night Elves. So let's be on the lookout for one of them. Where we got Arcane Residue, spell damage done increased by 21, we just one-shot that enemy, spell damage taken increased by 9. So we deal more damage with spells and we take more damage against spells. This is actually kind of a beneficial debuff to have if you're a warlock or a mage, because you just deal so much damage there just like that. But I see on the other side of this tree a Darnassian scout, and there's one over there. So just a night elf hanging out here. Let's go ahead and deal with him, where we just one-shot him. This is very, very nice. But he also dropped an item for us that we can go ahead and pick up, and it can begin a quest of incriminating documents, where the documents contain detailed maps of different strategic buildings in Eversong Woods. A diagram of an arcane sanctum is also sketched in good detail. There seems to be numerous notes in a language you don't recognize. As these are carried by a Darnassian spy, it might be a good idea to bring them to the captain of the guard. So let's go ahead and do just that, but we need to kill a few more mana creatures first. There's the last one. I basically one-shot every enemy after I got this buff, so it would be nice if I could maybe have that spell damage didn't increase by 335. That seems wrong, but wow, okay. Let's go ahead and turn in these 2 quests where we can get a new staff, and then we can return back towards Falconwing Square, where maybe I could just use my Hearthstone to get back over there, since this might be a little bit faster. Where I did get this new staff that I can go ahead and equip after we Hearthstone. So let's go ahead and equip that, and we can see it is another wooden staff, but looks a little bit different than the one we had equipped, and I think it looks very cool. Where I really like the simple weapons and armors you get at the start of your adventures in Azeroth. But here's the captain, where it seems like the envoy from Ironforge is a spy attempting to learn more about the Blood Elves, and presumably he is responsible for knowing so much about that arcane sanctum. So since there's a spy amongst us, let's go ahead and deal with the dwarven spy, and let's head back over towards that sanctum, where we got drains life from the target, causing 29 shadow damage over 5 seconds and healing you for 500% of the damage done. So we can go ahead and take life from our enemies, and this requires us to use some of our mana in order to do so, but it allows us to restore some health, and then we will unlock an ability where we can basically sacrifice some of our health to gain some mana, and we can like go back and forth. And if you play things right, and if you're very good at Warlock, you can basically just never run out of health or mana basically. But here's the Prospector, the fancy looking dwarf, where let's go ahead and distract him by showing him the building, and we can go ahead and take him to an area that he might not be able to fight us back at or be able to escape from. We're speaking of interiors, like I was talking about at the end, this place is also very well decorated, where we've seen like magical like brooms. Now we see this magical mop just mopping around here, and just a bunch of different fun things like the small little green crystal on this table here, and where we can go ahead and ambush him and deal with him, where we do not want spies amongst us, where the Alliance are definitely spying on us because we see the dwarf here and we see night elves around here, and we are going to continue seeing night elves as we progress through the 2 zones here in Quel'Thalas, but I don't think it's going to be for a while until the next time we see them. Which I just want to take a moment to appreciate Quel'Thalas, because it's such a cool area with so much like lore and story surrounding it. But going back to vanilla World of Warcraft, the furthest north we could go is the Eastern Plaguelands, and we couldn't go any further, but we could see it on the map, where the shape of Quel'Thalas was retconned with the Burning Crusade, but like that's kind of okay. But it's so cool to see Quel'Thalas on the roadmap, and like wondering when we would be able to explore it, and then we see with the Burning Crusade we could explore it now. Where I'm just going to pick one of the 2, and now we can go ahead and head towards Fairbreeze Village. So let's go ahead and do just that, where if I am to take it just a quick second to peek this way, we can see the Dead Scar, the path that the Scourge took through Quel'Thalas to get to the Sunwell, and has left a permanent tainted scar in the land, which is both very, very cool looking but also very, very sad. But let's go ahead and continue this way, where I think we're going to have a quest right up here where we have this Apprentice, and this is kind of just a really random quest that is kind of fun, where if you chat with him, we can go ahead and find this other apprentice down here where they were attacked by the wretched, and we can see if we can lend this apprentice a hand. Where we see him right here along the river where we have this very cool bridge. But let's go ahead and chat with this apprentice, where they threw their precious cargo into the river. So let's go ahead and search the river and bring him back the elemental grimoire, where we can see it right there. So they did not want to jump into the river, but we can go ahead and come down here and pick up this book that is probably now very, very wet. And let's go ahead and bring it back over here, where he probably could have reached it if he just went across the bridge and like kind of like lean down a little bit. Let's go ahead and turn this in, where we can bring the elemental grimoire to the instructor over here. So we can go ahead and do that in the future, and we can see how the instructor feels about his two students basically being failures. But let's go ahead and come back up this way, or I guess let's come up here for the first time, and we can go ahead and explore the main starting town in Eversong Woods. And this is going to be our big base of operations for the next couple of episodes, where there's just a lot of stuff around here we can explore, where we can go off to Sunset Anchorage or South Rose Haven, or we can go into Fairbreeze Village itself, or we can head to the Ghostlands, where we have Fairbreeze Village, and we can see some very cool dragon hawks that we can ride, and we have a bunch of quests all around here that we can go ahead and pick up. So we have uncovered this, and we can go further into Ghostlands if we wanted to, and I guess we've already unlocked all those 5 paths. That's interesting. I'll just take a quick moment to sell some of this stuff. We got some crystallized mana residue, which will restore our mana, which is kind of nice. But we have this Magistrix here that is going to take us to 3 different areas where we can head to the Ghostlands if we wanted. But then we also have a bunch of stuff in here, including this innkeeper. Let's just go ahead and set our home here so we can return here. And then we have a quest there, and we have a quest here, and then we have a quest here. And if we go upstairs, I think this is where we can turn in our quest, where we are very close to level 9, but I don't think we're going to reach it this episode. So yeah, I got very, very close there, just over 3 bars, where I do have that quest there, but I'll hold off on that for now. And let's go ahead and just pick up this quest. Wow, we are right here. And now if we look at our map, we have a bunch of different areas we can go to. We can head to the Ghostlands, but I'm going to wait a couple of episodes to do that. But we can go up here, we can go up here, we can go over here, over here, over here, and then we see a bunch of quest markers all around here. But that is going to be for the future, where I'm going to go ahead and call this episode good here, where it was fun to explore through Eversong Woods, take in the sights, and begin our adventures as a Blood Elf character, where I hope you all enjoyed as well, and I hope you all stick around and come back for episode 2, which will be uploaded in the near future. But I hope you all are taking good care of yourselves, and as always, remember to drink some water, check your posture, and subscribe. And I'll see you next time in the World of Azeroth. Goodbye.